I woke up fully clothed in my own bed, next to a complete stranger. My head pounding and my memory entirely wiped from the night before. Before I could even process the panic, my boyfriend's best friend was standing in my doorway, glaring at me with a look of manufactured disgust. By the time I managed to find my hidden phone, I had been blocked on everything. All my belongings were sitting outside my boyfriend's door in garbage bags, and the friend I trusted had already convinced him I was a cheating monster. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we are diving deep into the subreddit r/relationship advice. This post is brought to us by user fullact7668, and it asks a question that no one ever wants to face. My 37 female husband, 38 male, was fired for sexual harassment. What do I do? Let's get into the post. I have been married to my husband for 8 years. 8 years of building a life, paying mortgages, attending school plays, and raising our 2 beautiful children together. From the outside, we were the picture of suburban stability. I'm 37, he is 38, and I genuinely believed we had settled into the comfortable, trusting rhythm of a forever marriage. But last week, that entire illusion shattered into a million jagged pieces, and I have been walking on the glass ever since. It started on a Tuesday. He came home hours earlier than usual. The house was quiet, the kids were still at school, and the air immediately felt heavy the second he walked through the front door. He didn't have his usual briefcase in his hand. He looked pale, almost sickly, but there was a defensive edge in his eyes that made my stomach drop before he even opened his mouth. We sat down in the living room, and that's when he dropped the bomb. He had been fired. But it wasn't due to budget cuts or poor performance. My husband, the father of my children, was fired for sexual harassment. The words hung in the air like a foul stench. I couldn't process it at first. I just stared at him, waiting for the punchline of an incredibly cruel joke. But it wasn't a joke. He immediately launched into a frantic, chaotic defense, desperately trying to spin the narrative before I could even ask a question. He told me that he was flirting with a co-worker. She wasn't his direct report. He made sure to emphasize that, as if it somehow lessened the blow. But she was lower on the corporate hierarchy than he was. He swore up and down that she was the one who initiated the first flirtation. He painted himself as the passive participant who just got swept up in the moment. But the story didn't end there. After this alleged first flirtation, he took it upon himself to track her down on Facebook. He sent her a friend request. He started messaging her privately, crossing the line from office banter into direct, targeted pursuit. And whatever he said to her in those messages was terrifying enough, or inappropriate enough, that she screenshotted the entire conversation and marched straight to human resources. He was terminated immediately. But here is the most agonizing part. I don't know what was actually said. Before he came home, before he even looked me in the eye to confess, he deleted every single message. He scrubbed his phone clean. When I demanded to see the conversation, he just shook his head, looking down at his hands, and claimed they were gone. All he would admit to was that he asked her to send him a clothed picture. A clothed picture. The absurdity of that phrase echoed in my mind. Who risks their career, their 6-figure salary, their marriage, and their family to ask a co-worker for a clothed picture? It made absolutely no sense. I was left completely in the dark, suffocating under the weight of his deleted secrets. I am at an absolute loss for what to do here. The betrayal is a physical ache in my chest. Do I stay with him and try to move past this? Is this a big enough deal to blow up my entire family and leave him? There is a sickening context to all of this that I can't ignore. I know for an absolute fact that he has messaged at least one other woman in the past. I saw those messages with my own eyes a few years ago. They weren't overtly sexual, which is how he justified them at the time, but they were undeniably flirtatious. He was testing the waters back then, pushing the boundaries of our vows. I forgave him. I thought it was a one-time lapse in judgment. Now I see it was a pattern. He is the kind of man who constantly seeks external validation in the shadows. Leaving him isn't as simple as packing a bag and walking out the door. I only work part-time. My entire financial reality is tied to his income, an income that no longer exists, because he couldn't keep his behavior in check. If I leave, I have to figure out how to support 2 children on a part-time salary, which means I desperately need to find a new, full-time job in a terrifying economy. Furthermore, he has nowhere else to stay. He burned his bridges. He has no savings of his own to rent an apartment, so we are trapped in this house together. Every day is a nightmare of tense silences and awkward encounters in the hallway. We have to keep living together, at least until the job situation is resolved. After posting my story online, thousands of people pointed out the gaping holes in his clothed picture lie. You all gave me the courage to confront him again. I walked into the guest room where he's been sleeping, looked him dead in the eye, and demanded the truth about the photo. He panicked. His story shifted again. This time, he claimed they were talking about Halloween, and he just innocently asked her to send a picture of her in her costume. It was insulting. It was deeply, profoundly insulting to my intelligence. I made my decision quietly in the dark that night. We are getting divorced. I decided to end the marriage right then and there. I couldn't look at him without feeling intense disgust. However, the second I began laying down the groundwork for our separation, he spiraled. He had a massive, intense mental health crisis. It was terrifying, and despite my anger, I am still human. I am still the mother of his children. So, I let him continue to live in our house until the situation was more stable. I paused the eviction. I walked on eggshells. I became a prisoner to his fragility, hoping that, if I just gave him a little grace, he would get back on his feet and leave, peacefully. Months dragged on. The atmosphere in the house was a toxic sludge. Finally, he managed to secure a new job, a fresh start. I breathed a massive sigh of relief, thinking the countdown to his departure had finally begun. He started working, and for a few weeks, things were quiet. Then, history didn't just repeat itself. It violently slammed into me all over again. Yesterday, he came home early. The exact same look on his face, the exact same defensive posture. He has been suspended from his brand new job. The reason? Once again, he was caught sexually harassing someone. The exact same predatory behavior. The exact same boundary-breaking compulsion. Enacted on a brand new victim in record time. We will find out within the next couple of days if he officially still has a job or not. But I know the writing is on the wall. He will very likely be fired. Again. The shred of pity I was holding on to evaporated instantly. The mental health crisis was no longer an excuse. It was a shield he used to hide his toxic nature. I walked into the living room, stood over him, and told him it is time for him to find somewhere else to live. I do not care if he doesn't have a job. I do not care if he has to sleep in his car. While I genuinely hope he is able to get professional help and work on his mental health, I finally realized something incredibly liberating. I do not believe it is my problem anymore. I'm currently getting the house ready to sell. The kids and I will probably move in with my parents until we get back on our feet. The illusion is dead, but for the first time in months, I can finally breathe. I think when I made my original post, I knew deep down what I needed to do. I just hadn't come to terms with the terrifying fact that my life was going to change so quickly and so completely. Community comments.
Tiny Tatty Patati points out the obvious red flags.
It's interesting that his work thinks it's inappropriate enough to fire him, but you don't think it's a big enough problem to divorce him. Plus, no man alive has ever asked a girl for a clothed photo. Think about it. She would have had those posted on the Facebook he went looking for.
Homeschool Mama, 45, offers some grounded, practical advice.
The one thing I'll add is you don't have to leave right this second. It's not a stay forever versus leave right now. If you're unsure, you can think about it and take time. Start therapy. Try to get the messages from HR if they might have them. Have a consult with a divorce attorney. Start looking for a different job. All of those things can happen while you think about it.
Jackins, 77, hits the nail on the head regarding the husband's character. Your husband is the office creep. Besides the second woman, who knows what he's done that hasn't been reported? Do what feels best for you, but I think you'll eventually get the ex. Don't start with marriage counseling. He needs individual counseling because he's the one with issues.
Wow, this post is an absolute masterclass in why you should always trust your gut.
OP's husband demonstrated a terrifying pattern of predatory behavior, and what makes it truly chilling is how easily he lied to his own wife to cover his tracks.
The clothed picture excuse is a classic manipulation tactic, minimizing the severity of the offense to test exactly how much disrespect his partner is willing to tolerate.
But the most shocking twist in this entire saga is the audacity to repeat the exact same behavior at his very next job, just months later.
It proves without a shadow of a doubt that his tears and his mental health crisis were merely tools to buy time and stay comfortable under OP's roof. He didn't want to change. He just wanted to avoid the consequences of his actions. OP showed immense grace by letting him stay during his crisis, but her ultimate realization that his brokenness is no longer her responsibility is incredibly empowering. She is protecting her children and her peace, and severing ties with a serial harasser was the only logical end to this nightmare. Thank you so much for watching. Deep breath.